There, Paul. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
Doing good. Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Augustine, Chair of the Redistricting Commission. I would like to welcome everyone to this public outreach meeting, the 15th one in this 2021 redistricting cycle. The topic of discussion this afternoon is Congressional Districts 8 and 10, and the legislative districts included within the 8th and the 10th Congressional District. I'll have more to say about that later, but first, let's kick things off with a video message from the commissioners. Maria? Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Augustine. I'm the chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission, recently chosen by the 4 voting members of the commission to facilitate and to lead this effort.
Hello, everyone. I'm Commissioner April Sims.
I'm Commissioner Joe Fain.
I'm Commissioner Brady Pinheiro-Walkinshaw.
I'm Commissioner Paul Graves. I'm one of 4 voting members recently appointed by the state legislative leadership of the Washington State Redistricting Commission.
Once a decade, we redraw our congressional and state legislative district boundaries using data the Census Bureau collected last year, reflecting changes made to the population in the last 10 years.
States across the nation handle redistricting in different ways.
In Washington, the state constitution and law establish an independent redistricting commission.
As commission members, we've committed ourselves to a process that is open,
transparent,
and credible.
These maps will belong to all the people of Washington.
With that in mind, we encourage you to help us draw your WA.
The Commission will hold virtual public outreach meetings focused on populations residing in each of Washington's 10 congressional districts,
as well as additional outreach meetings to be scheduled soon.
Live Spanish and American Sign Language interpretations will be available for each of these meetings.
With your unique insights about the community, we will work to ensure a credible redistricting process resulting in maps reflecting fair representation for all Washingtonians.
Please take part. After all, it's really your map.
so come help us draw your WA.
Help us draw our WA.
Come help us draw your WA.
So please help us draw your WA.
Thank you, Maria. To maximize the number of opportunities for public input, the second round of public comment will be hosted by a bipartisan dyad. That is, one commissioner from each of the major parties. We adopted this strategy to ensure that residents of each congressional district would have at least 2 opportunities for public comment. All comments heard will be recorded into the official record and reviewed by all 4 voting commissioners. This afternoon, we are joined by Commissioner Graves and Commissioner Walkinshaw. To those of you from the public joining us today, welcome again. It is my goal as chair to facilitate a process that is as participatory, fair, and equitable as is possible. I will endeavor to engage communities across Washington as fully as I can and to hear and address your concerns and requests. Throughout our tenure as commissioners, we will hear public comments that are important and we'll listen to you. I will do my best to synthesize these comments and we will endeavor to respond as we are able. Still, it is possible that you will bring forward in your public comments ideas, requests, and injustices that we may not be able to address. We will certainly deliberate on the issues where we do have jurisdiction, and where we don't, I will do my best to refer you to those who may be able to respond more effectively. At this time, I would like to review the purpose and values of the commission. Together as a commission, we have agreed on the following: to provide an open, transparent, and credible process that is grounded in statute and where all voices are welcome and there's access for everyone. To conduct ourselves with transparency, respect, and civility, where commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith. And to meet the deadline outlined by law and produce the best possible maps. You may be aware that because of the pandemic, this redistricting cycle promises to be a challenging one. While we should have received the data from the Census Bureau that we need to begin to redistrict by April 1st of this year, we don't expect to have that data until mid to late August. Nonetheless, in late April, the Census Bureau did deliver to the President and the nation the apportionment data, which told us which states would gain seats in the US Congress and Electoral College and which would not. Based on that data, we know that in the last decade, the population of our state grew by 14.6% and added approximately 1 million residents. Despite that population growth, it did not change the number of congressional seats we are entitled to. Washington will continue to have 10 representatives in the US House of Representatives. Based on population growth in the state, our job as the Redistricting Commission is to distribute as equally as is practical the population among 10 congressional districts and 49 legislative districts. Based on the census data from April, Washington had a population of 7,705,281 residents as of April 1st, 2020. Therefore, we need to draw 10 new congressional districts that are as compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 770,528 residents, and 49 legislative districts that are also compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 157,251 residents. Statute also instructs us, in as much as it is practical, to minimize drawing district lines that cut through counties, municipalities, or communities of interest. And the Commission is committed to applying these principles while we try to create equally proportioned districts. So while we know the overall population of the state according to the census, we don't yet know the particulars of percentage growth across neighborhoods, towns, cities, and counties. State population estimates of the past 10 years do give us a relatively good idea of where our 7.7 million residents live and which districts will need to get larger in area to add more residents and which districts will need to get smaller in order to shed residents. And as we add or subtract neighborhoods from one district, it will cause the need to make corresponding adjustments to the neighboring districts. Just to show you broadly, Maria, will you please put up the first map? Thank you. This map shows Washington State and its 10 congressional districts. The darker the brown color, the more the district needs to grow in size, and the darker the teal color, the more the district needs to shrink in size. So, regarding the topic of discussion today, the 8th and 10th congressional districts, the map indicates that the 8th congressional district, according to state population estimates, has slightly more residents than the needed 770,000 residents to make it proportional. It may need to shed a few residents. The 10th congressional district currently has slightly less than the needed 770,000 residents to make it proportional. Depending on the final number we get back from the Census Bureau, it looks like this congressional district may have to absorb a few more residents. Now, next slide, please, Maria. The 8th congressional district includes parts of legislative districts 2, 5, 12, 13, and 31. The 10th congressional district includes all of legislative districts 22, most of legislative districts 25 and 28, and parts of legislative districts 2, 20, 27, 29, 31, and 35. Based on state populations, we can see that the 2nd, 5th, 22nd, 25th, and 31st have more than the 157,000 residents in the district. So they will need to give up some residents, while the 12th, 13th, 20th, 27th, 28th, 29th, and 35th have less than the needed 157,000 residents, and they'll have to grow to absorb residents. Next slide, please, Maria. Here is a zoomed in map of the western portion of the 8th congressional district. Here you can see that the 8th congressional district also includes parts of legislative districts 11, 25, 28, 30, 33, 41, 45, and 47. Based on the state population estimates, we can see that the 41st and 45th have more than the needed 157,000 residents in the districts. They'll need to give up some residents, while the 11th, 30th, 33rd, and 47th have less than the needed 157,000 residents, and they'll have to grow to absorb more residents. Thank you, Maria. So that's just a brief overview of the challenge that your redistricting commission faces this year. In essence, commissioners have to create a new puzzle out of the state, and the puzzle pieces have to contain nearly exactly the same population. As we make one puzzle piece smaller, its adjacent puzzle pieces will need to absorb those additional areas, meaning that every time a boundary is moved, it creates a cascade of changes in surrounding districts. So the purpose of our meeting today is to listen to your input about your community and how to ensure that the districts are fairly balanced in terms of population, but also respect shared community interests. The commission may not be able to meet every interest, but as commissioners try to weigh the trade-offs inherent in this process, your opinions are welcome and important. As of yesterday at 3 p.m., we had 57 individuals who had signed up to testify today. We're going to invite individuals in groups of 4 to testify. Each individual will have 2 minutes to offer their comment. After 4 people have testified, we will see if the commission has any questions of the 4 testifiers, and then we will move on to the next group of testifiers. With that summary, Sean, let's begin. Please call the first panel. Sorry, Sean, we can't hear you for some.
Apologize for that, Chair. Our first panel will begin with C. Davis, Rennie Storm, Sam Morelli, and Dave Little. So we will begin with C. Davis. C, if you are able to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Okay.
See, it looks like you are having some internet
Hello.
issues. I would recommend turning off your
Can you
video.
hear
You are
me?
cutting out. You're cutting out.
Hello. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm C. Davis.
Better.
Hopefully you can hear me all right. Let me get the video off. Yes. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. Better without the video. So, okay. Name is C. Davis. And I am in the 22nd district. And I fully understand that the principles that you suggested about the districts are to be of equal size and
Sir, I'm sorry, but we just can't seem to hear you. And so I wonder if you would be willing to
preferably
submit your comment in writing. Another opportunity that
not
you have,
to
you can record yourself and send us a video as well to our email.
violate county lines and so forth.
I'm sorry, we're just not able to hear
but
you.
in the real world,
See, I'm sorry, we're not able to really hear you. You're cutting out quite a lot. If you're able to either record your testimony and send it in either in a video or audio format, or you can please write to the commission with your full testimony. Your audio is cutting out quite badly. We're getting maybe every 10th word. With that being said, we will move on to our next testifier, Rennie Storm. If you are able to turn on your video and begin your testimony, please.
There we go. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. As PCO in Legislative District 2, I've been following this commission for many months, and on and for the record, it is my opinion and continues to be the US Census is off on their tabulations that I have commented on months ago. These census figures are taking away the voice of many thousands in a class of people who still hold value. It creates a false population demographic. And while the focus for the Census Bureau was on prisoners and college students, there is an uncalculated population of homeless that were ignored, much like dust swept under a carpet. For instance, in April of this year, the County Commission of Dutchess 2-to-1 vote to send the homeless population out of the cities and into the rural areas, away from services that they would receive into areas that would be difficult for them to get to for the services. Now, regardless of the growth figures since 2020, the homeless by name and nature are transient, yet the homeless have an intrinsic value that become invisibly moved like chess pieces on a board to checkmate the opposition. The homeless in my district, LD2, can become targets of those who wish to register votes and then perhaps harvest ballots. Whereas all the colored maps and graphics do not reflect actual numbers because of the deficits, I do not want my precinct and LD2 to be victim of this or any proposed change of lines for population based on false statistics. So we really need to look at those numbers again and look at the game that's being played, and hopefully it'll have more accurate reflection. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you spending this time with us this afternoon. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please. Our
final speaker for this panel, one of the speakers dropped off, will be Sam Morrill. If you can, please turn on your video, unmute yourself, and begin your testimony. Please begin whenever you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'm Sam Merrill, live in the 22nd LD and the 10th CD, and I thank the Commission for the delicate and consequential task that you face. I also appreciate that redistricting in Washington State employs a independent and bipartisan commission, as was mentioned earlier, rather than leaving this sensitive job to a single party, as is done in far too many states. Still, even with such a commission, it's essential to avoid the pitfalls of letting partisan advantage get in the way of equitable design of districts. Districts should be compact and keep communities together so that groups in one geographical area can meet with and advocate for their concerns with the same legislator or congressperson. But most importantly, redistricting must avoid packing and cracking, in which as many as possible of the citizens of one party are packed into one district so that the party can, so that only one district then will have a legislator voting for that, for those people, while those supporting another party or group are cracked, which means that they're spread out over many other districts in just enough numbers to carry each of that party in upcoming elections for the party which has done the cracking. Designing plans to achieve a fair and equitable balance, which you've stated is the objective of the Commission, amid all the possible potholes, is a difficult task that you face. And I commend your willingness to take it on and contribute to fair representation for all Washingtonians. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your willingness to spend this time with us this morning or this afternoon. And so I want to ask at this point if the commissioners have questions or comments for the members on this first panel. Okay. All right, so I have just a quick comment that I would make to Ms. Storr. And that is just simply to say that we have not received census data yet. So the estimates that you're discussing are not related to the census that was taken last year. So I just wanted to clarify that point. All right, thank you for coming and sharing with us. And you're excused. And Sean, if you would please call. Oh.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Lisa Randlett, Julian Wheeler, Kyron McMichael, and Victor Menjarez. If we can begin with the first testifier, please. Lisa, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony. Okay, we will go to Julian Wheeler. If you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Can you see me?
I
Can you hear
can.
me?
Please begin.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and shift over here. Oops. My name is Julian Wheeler. I'm a resident of Lakewood in the 10th Congressional District, as well as the 29th Legislative District. And I just wanted to follow up on comments made back in June regarding what could still be considered novel approaches to considering who to place or who to, how to redraw these districts. And I understand that there's a concern from a previous speaker regarding, I heard the terms cracking and packing or something like that. And I may possibly share those concerns, but I think that there are constituencies like the ones I mentioned in the previous comment, such as young people, people with disabilities, and then military veterans and soldiers, active duty, who we need to look at how, first of all, the fact is that we all start out young, so it would be nice to have a district where young people can really help sway an outcome and feel that their voices can be heard. And these might eventually become competing interests, but I would also say that with respect to people with disabilities, the fact is every one of us will become a person with disability eventually, but that people who live with lifelong disabilities, considering the vulnerabilities, that needs to be looked at carefully, and not just in terms of drawing the district, but trying to reduce the barriers within the eventual district. And I noted that this is also covering the 8th Congressional District, having a district that kind of transcends a mountain range. That could be inherently a barrier, and particularly for anyone, but I'm thinking people with disabilities, considering.
I apologize that you were cut off. You've exceeded your time limit.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, and do please stay because it appears that at least one commissioner has a comment or a question for you,
Right.
And we'd be happy to engage at the end of this panel if you please stick around. Sean, if you call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair. Lisa, I see you. You look like you're ready. Please begin your testimony.
Thank you so much. And thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity this afternoon. I really appreciate the opportunity to go on public record. I'm here to speak today in representing as a community of interest that is older people, those people over 55. We are an age wave that is a really dramatically changing demographic, increasing very quickly. We encompass all ethnicities. We are working and non-working. We have major interests that are somewhat distinct characteristics in both federal programs and federal law, as well as state programs, state law. Social Security, Medicare come to mind. There are many other programs, but secure, stable medical services is a concern for all of us, but definitely for us. So we represent a substantial voting bloc. We want to make sure that the voting patterns are accurately reflected across the demographics and across the boundaries that you establish. I will be submitting written comments as well, and I am working on a map using your tool. I look forward to getting the census data to be able to do something a little bit more accurate. But again, please consider the distinct characteristics and encompassing characteristics of older voters. And again, very much appreciate your services.
Thank you very much. We sure appreciate your taking the time to join us this afternoon. John, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Kimberly, I see that your video is on. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
All right.
You had, I'll stop you real quick. You had your video on, it kicked off. Okay, there you go.
All right. Hello, I'm very grateful to be here and grateful to put faces to names of the commissioners. I live in the LD 22 and the CD 10. I've lived here for 6 years, and I understand this task is huge, and I appreciate your work. I know that the population is growing around Olympia and the small municipalities around Olympia. And I wanted to say that the maps you showed earlier were the first time I'd seen the concept of losing population and gaining. So I wish I had studied that more before this, but I just have a couple comments. I think that the LD 35 is too large an area and too diverse. So some major cities and so much rural. And I do think that the LD 22 could be enlarged, probably to the west. And my main comment is that I'd like to see the Nisqually tribe in one CD so that they're represented by one representative. And our other tribe nearby is the Squaxin Island tribe. And of course, that's so small, it will end up being not divided, and that's a good thing. But Nisqually is quite large and is currently divided. So I would appreciate that you pay attention to the tribal lands. That's all I have to say, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks very much for taking the time to share with us this afternoon. We appreciate it. John, if you'd call the next speaker, please. I think it's the final speaker for this panel.
It is, Chair. Our final speaker will be Keary McMichael. If you can, I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Keary McMichael. I'm a resident of Lacey, Washington, where I'm a precinct committee officer for 309. I'm also a Lacey City Planning Commissioner and a member of the League of Women Voters. As an active member in LD 22 and CD10, where we're going to meetings in Thurston County, we get to engage with all the different legislative districts within, and we are often concerned with fair representation as redistricting is occurring, especially after this last census and when the numbers are finalized. In meetings, the LD 35 is spread over 2 congressional districts, and it's such a huge span of territory. It's really hard for people to be able to actively participate within their congressional districts and within their legislative district kind of holistically. So keeping our legislative districts intact within the CD boundaries and keeping our cities and communities intact during the redistricting. So would be something that would be key. So thank you so much for your work here with this commission and for focusing on supporting us as we grow over the years.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your commitment to spending this time with us this afternoon. So now I want to ask the commissioners if they have questions or comments, and Commissioner Walkinshaw, go ahead. Sorry, you're muted.
I'm indeed muted. Thank you so much, Chair Augustine. I really appreciate the comments that were raised by the testifier with regard to thinking about people with disabilities in this process. I think that is both important in the public engagement as we work through this, but it's also important, as you said, in terms of accessibility to the democracy once these lines are drawn. So thank you so much. And I also, Kimberly, I appreciate your comments as well on engaging older demographics as well in this process. So thank you so much.
So Julian, if you're still here, would you like to respond?
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Augustine and Commissioner Walkinshaw. And I apologize for going over for the second time in a row. I'd like to request maybe a digital clock that I can see and maybe a 30-second warning. Otherwise, good job. And I would just say that as a disabled military veteran, just to complete the thought, people in the military and veteran families, the fact is they do need some more, a better venue in which to provide their voice. And right now I would acknowledge that the 28th district, which I used to live in as a resident of Joint Base Lewis McChord, very well, probably needs to expand. And I'm willing to sacrifice my present status in the 29th for that purpose, but I'm just a constituent. But Mr. Walkinshaw, thank you for your feedback too. And I would say that this is a kind of like a new thing, relatively speaking. I know that other attributes have been considered, protected classes and otherwise partisan affinity, but people with disabilities tends to be overlooked a lot. And I know it's probably a tall order to ask that a district be dramatically reformed so as not to go over the mountains, as it were. Although I imagine there are other trade-offs. So I'll just close out. This is personal testimony. I happen to serve as the Pierce County, the chair of the Accessible Community Advisory Committee, and I used to serve on the Governor's Committee on Disability Issues and Employment.
Thank you. And so Commissioner Walkinshaw also made reference to your testimony. Lisa, I wonder if you would like to respond.
Thank you, Commissioner Walkinshaw. Yes, I am a relatively recent retiree. I think we represent the poster children of all the working people and still very much care about, our sisters and brothers who continue to work and provide all the important services and, are an integral part of the community that we're all in. So that said, it's, I think, really noteworthy to recognize what a significant percentage of the voting public, older Washingtonians, make up. And one of the challenges we have as a community is that we typically don't consider ourselves a unified community. We tend to be, more geographically based on our professions, our ethnicity, those of us that are women. And what I'm finding as I'm going forward and learning about being, a retiree working for myself, I say, is.
I'm sorry, we lost you just as you're about to, just at the punchline there. So I apologize for that, and certainly look forward to seeing your written comment. And so, yeah, thank you. And thanks for all of your comments. And so, Commissioner Graves, are there additional questions or comments you have for folks on this panel? No. Commissioner Walkinshaw, do you have more?
Lisa, I apologize. I said Kimberly in my remarks, but thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'd like to thank the members of this panel. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. And it's important that we understand what's going on in your communities. So thank you for being here. You're excused. Sean, if you would call the next panel, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our first panelist will be Victor Minjares. Our next panelist after that will be Madeline Bishop, Barbara Barishi, and then Edward Martinez. So Victor, if you are able to unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Victor Minjares. I live in LD 22 in the 10th Congressional District. I'm the former chair of the Thurston County Democrats. And like a couple of prior speakers, I'd like to emphasize the importance of keeping political units such as the tribes and particularly LDs together within the county, within a county as much as possible. The principal, in my experience, the principal unit of organization, the primary one, is not the local districts, but the county organizations. And for example, Thurston County has 4 legislative districts, and I think the 35th and the 22nd get the benefit of that more so than the 2nd and the 20th. And I think it would be helpful for engagement for people in the 2nd and 20th if more of it was in Thurston. One of them had more in Thurston County, or both were out of Thurston County. One or the other. You know, we need more of one rather than have those divided, because they have to go to too many locations to really be active in a meaningful sense on the county level, where most of the assistance comes to the LDs. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We really appreciate you sharing your insights, especially specific to the geographies where you live. Thank you. Sean, if you could call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair, our next speaker will be Madeline Bishop. I see your video's on and you're unmuted, so you can begin your testimony.
Hi, I'm Madeline Bishop, and I live in CD10 and LD2. I'm in the Lake St. Clair area of East Olympia. And my problem with the Legislative District 2 is that it's very partisan, and that I don't have a chance for my values to be represented or my candidate to win. And I'd like to see a little more equal distribution. And for example, in 2020, our Representative Wilcox got 65.5% of the vote, and Barkas's seat was uncontested. In 2018, Wilcox's seat was uncontested. And because that they don't need my vote, my representatives have not taken my concerns seriously and often misrepresent what their constituents want. This neighborhood, there's many retired military in this area, and I'd like to see the 28th district extended down into my area where people have a shared interest with the JBLM community. I do not have a shared interest with Ording or Edenville, which are also in LD2, very, very far away from me. So the biggest point I would like to make is I'd like it a little more fair, and the divide between Republicans and Democrats. So thank you very much for listening. Bye.
Thank you very much. We sure appreciate you taking the time to share with us today. Sean, if you would call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair, our next speaker will be Edward. I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Yes, thank you very much. Hope you can see my Farm Workers Are Essential t-shirt. I wanted to wear that for today. So my name is Ed Martinez, and I live on the shores of Lake Wenatchee, just outside of Leavenworth. I want to talk a little bit about our Representative Kim Schreier and why she is such an asset to our area in CD8. Number one, she has an office and a paid staff member locally in Wenatchee to listen to our needs. We feel important and included. Number two, she holds regular town halls, which anyone can attend. Honestly, there are tough questions, but she always knows how to answer the questions in a manner that anyone can understand. Kim has worked closely with another rural representative, Representative Dan Newhouse, to bring forward bills and legislation to help our farm workers and firefighters. She's currently working on getting federal aid for the recent fire victims of the North Central Washington. At one of our last picnics on the Columbia River, which she personally attended, she correctly stated that our area was instrumental in getting her elected. We love working for her. Finally, Kim was instrumental in getting $92 million of Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant for the Apple Capitol Loop project just outside of Wenatchee, the highest single grant given to any one cause in the country. Previous representatives of our area never held a town hall, and most certainly never secured a $92 million grant. She understands us and has built a great reputation with Democrats and Republicans alike. We love her and we want to keep her. Please help NCW keep Kim and make sure to include us in the CD8 redistricting exercise. Commissioners, thank you for your hard work and for taking the time to listen to our testimonies. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you bringing views and your insights. Thank you for sharing with us this afternoon. And Sean, if you'd call the last speaker for this panel, please.
Of course, Chair, our final speaker will be Barbara. I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself, please begin your testimony.
Hi, I'm Barbara B. Keary. I live in Kittitas County. That's CD 8 and Legislative District 13. I've already spoken at one of these panels, so I'll keep it short. I just wanted to kind of follow up on that fairness idea, which is kind of my thing too. I would really like to see distributions done or distinctions made that include people that not only share, political and, I mean, not share political, people that have similar social and communities that have similar economies and social settings and so on, but also that are diverse in terms of Republicans and Democrats and independents, so that everyone feels like they have a fair shot in voting and doesn't feel shut out. And I've lived here for 50 years, and often in the past, I felt like my voice hasn't been heard. The way things are set up now, I feel like it is. I love our congressional district, and I'll say I love Kim Schreier too. So I'd like to see continue under in that district. In any case, thank you very much. I appreciate the tough job you have, and for listening to all of us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon and to share your perspectives. So at this time, I'd like to ask the commissioners if you have comments or questions for the folks on this panel. Okay, seeing none, I want to thank you again. Thank you for showing up for your community today and being part of this process. You're now excused. Sean, if you please call the next panel.
Absolutely, Chair. Our first panelist will be Bill Buchan, Dan Santon, Karen Hawkins, and then Glenn Rudolph. If we can begin with Dan Santon. Dan, I see you. If you can just unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Right at the top of the order. So my concern around CD 8 and 10 is a little bit, I'm not a constituent of either, but I'm sort of bordering it, an activist in South King County just in general. The 8th CD, I understand, is fairly well overrepresented. Was one, and this specifically pertains to the LD penetration of 8. I was just hoping, if the 33rd, when its lines are drawn, if we can get more precincts of the 8th inside 33rd. Currently, the 4 precincts, 2 are like uninhabited, 2 have some people, but it's just there's not as much representation. It makes it sort of hard to like bring them into the discourse. And then just in general, moving 8 north to Highway 2, keeping Leavenworth in the loop 2, I think will probably help with those numbers. And then in regards to CD 10, it's just really sort of weird that there's that little squared jag in Tacoma. If we could move that north to like 16, I feel like that would be like a natural boundary and make more sense and get Tacoma better represented in CD 10. It's sort of like being on the edge of 6. It doesn't seem to make sense, at least to me. I don't remember what 6 is, whether it's lean or fat, but those are my ideas regarding 8 and 10. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I wonder if I could get you to say your name for the record, please.
Hi, I'm sorry. My name is Dan Santon. I live in SeaTac, Washington.
Gosh, thanks very much. And we appreciate you. Good to see you again. Appreciate your comments. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next speaker will be Bill Buchan. If you can please begin your testimony.
My name is Bill Buchan. Today, I am proposing a statewide congressional district map that keeps counties whole to the maximum extent possible, with districts that are compact and logically connected by the highway system. The current District 8, as well as Districts 1 and 2, completely contradict the Commission's stated goal of being compact, contiguous, and convenient. The current District 8 extends from McKenna in southwest Pierce County through eastern King, then jumps the Cascades to grab up Kittitas and Chelan counties in remote and culturally different eastern Washington. So what's wrong with the present District 8 besides its tortured shape? First, no citizen of Chelan or Kittitas County could ever hope to be the current District 8 representative, but they would have an equal shot of being the District 4 rep if returned to Eastern Washington where they logically belong. I wonder how many of Washington's citizens realize that the current representatives of District 1, 8, and 9 all live within a 15-mile cluster in financially dominant East Lake King County. With this arrangement, Snohomish County, our third largest, is lucky to have any resident representative, and that one's interests are mostly from Everett North. My proposed District 8 would run from the east shore of Lake Washington eastwards to the King-Chelan line. The other districts, 2, Everett northward with the northwest counties, District 1, the bulk of Snohomish plus Northwest King, to populate a compact North Metro district. District 9 would similarly be a South Metro district composed of mainly South King plus Northeast Pierce. These districts can be sensibly and exactly defined by county officials once actual population data are received. I ask that we return to sensible congressional districts. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate the thought you've put into your comments today, and thank you for being here. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair. If we can have Glenn Rudolph go next. If you can turn your video on, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Hi, I'm Glenn Rudolph. I live in Roslyn, Washington. I think, Kittitas County really needs to be in CD8. Kim Schreier does so much for us with our infrastructure problems. She's coming to town on the 4th to talk to us about our 100-year-old water pipe. I mean, this is amazing. So we appreciate what she does. And I was looking at the study and the maps when you sent them out a while ago, and what I found, I would just keep the Muckleshoot Reservation intact and shave off a little bit down around McKenna and probably throw Mercer Island out the door. That's what I got to say today. Hey, thank you, and good luck with your water witching. I mean, it's a gruesome job. It's a real, I don't know how you do it. Anyway, but good luck.
Thank you. And gosh, we appreciate you being here. And I personally appreciate the specifics that you've given us. You're the expert in your community, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
You bet. Sean, if you call the next speaker, please. It's the last in this panel.
It is, Chair. Our final speaker will be Karen Hawkins. If you can please begin your testimony.
Hey, thank you for taking my testimony and even making it possible that I can testify and share my feelings about what's going on. And it's not just mine, but many of the people who live on the eastern side of the mountains. We are all part of District 8, and yet we feel this disconnection so often when we write our congressman. And I've heard glowing reports about Kim Schreier, and I appreciate those. But when we have personally, not just me only, but others that I know in the district have written to her, she has responded by saying, with a deaf ear, saying, I don't hear your concerns. I'm going to go forward with what pretty much King County is wanting. And she's not thinking of Chelan County, which I totally understand. It's not her district. She's not part of it. I'm not feeling guilty about, I'm not condemning her for it. I totally appreciate her situation that she's in, having to span a mountain range. And because of your integrity in trying to bring forth contiguous districts that have likeness between its constituents so that they can stand together, even if they're disagreeing on parties or whatever, but we still have the same landscapes. We still have the same social atmosphere that we're living in. It is so wonderful to hear you saying that you care about this and that you want to give us what we need. And that would be a separation from the Western Washington and Eastern Washington, and to no longer span the mountain range. I'm understanding they want it in Kittitas, and that's fine, but I can tell you Chelan County, so many of us feel underrepresented. Especially, I just read a poll and it was talking about how Washington is really not center left. We're center. Washington State cares about all kinds of issues, and we're not one side or the other. And I thank you for considering that and understanding how important our lives and our life.
Thank you. I'm so sorry you've exceeded your time. And so please do stay here in the room, and perhaps one of the commissioners will have a comment or a question for you. And so I think that concludes this panel. So at this time, I want to ask the commissioners, do you have comments or questions for the folks on this panel? Okay, seeing none, I want to thank you again for joining us today and for sharing your insights about your community and for showing up for your community in that way. Now excused. And Sean, please call the next panel.
Absolutely, Chair. Our final panel will begin with Jeffrey Olson, Whit Worcester. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name, and then DeLuca Dagger, and then we have a call-in panelist who we'll get to very last. But we will begin with Jeffrey Olson. If you can please begin your testimony.
I thank everyone. Glad to be back on. As for the comments of moving the two counties over the mountains into the fourth, I would say most likely they'll go into the fifth because of the trying to unite the Colville Indian tribe. Now, if you move those counties over, that's going to split Wenatchee. And Wenatchee will, the third district is going to have to move into half of Wenatchee and the Yakima. I should say Yakima. And that would split up the Yakima nations, even worse. Now there's Chelan County has about 79,000. But if you add the total of all the gains given in the Puget Sound areas, it's 78,600. You might shove it over into the fifth, but that means that the fifth and fourth would have to pass all the gains over to the sixth on the west side. And that is going to be a nice trick. It's very, very hard to do it. And I tell you the truth, the simplest way is the best way. And moving counties into other districts is not the good way to do it. And that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. We're always glad to hear from you. Thank you for taking the time to share with us about the 10th and the 8th today. We sure appreciate it. Sean, if you call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely. Whit, oh, sorry. Whit, if you can turn your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony.
Thank you for taking my testimony. I'm a 40-year resident of the 31st Legislative District, 10th District, and a PCO here in Edgewood. I just feel so concerned about the delay that you've experienced in having data for doing this on a finer tuned basis, and I appreciate being able to hear the other comments and look forward to being able to work with MAPS when that data finally is here. Thank you for taking mine.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today and for voicing your concern. We appreciate it. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. One of our other speakers has dropped off. We are going to come back to Dave Little in just a minute, who was having technical difficulties earlier. We're going to see if his connection has gotten better. But in the meantime, our next panelist will be our call-in panelist. The call-in panelist with the phone number ending in 173, if you can hit *6 to unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony. And as we're waiting for them, they have not responded quite yet. Dave Little, if you want to please begin. Hopefully we're able to hear you this time.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much for a chance to speak. I'm the chair of the 2nd Legislative District, and that is split between Pierce and Thurston counties, and it runs right along, well, it's divided by the Nisqually Reservation and Lewis McCord. So it's kind of an awkward district to get everybody together in. It extends, of course, all the way over to almost to Yakima on the other end of the district. One of the issues that we've talked about is that there are several tribal areas, and we want to be sure that in the redistricting that the tribal lands don't become separated between the different legislative districts. Beyond that, we're kind of a red district. I don't think that's going to change on the margins. I just ask that any redistricting be done fairly and sensibly.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to share with us this afternoon. Ron, if you would like to call our last panelist.
Of course, Chair, our final panelist will be that call-in panelist again with the phone number last 3 ending in 173. If you can please press *6 to unmute yourself. And please
this is Julian Wheeler. I don't need to comment again. This is Julian Wheeler. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So in that case, that concludes this panel. So I want to ask the commissioners if you have comments or questions for the folks on this panel. Okay, seeing none. Thank you again for coming and sharing with us today and being part of this public outreach meeting. And we're now excused. And so I would like to offer the commissioners at this time an opportunity to make concluding remarks. Commissioner Graves?
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for everybody for showing up this afternoon and talking to us about your congressional districts and your legislative districts where you live. We know this can be kind of an esoteric process, and also can be a little frustrating because we are waiting for the official census data, so we don't even have draft maps to be able to show you and for you to comment on. But I've been really grateful for all the participation we've had and all the comments that we received about what's working and not working for your current lines. And we are taking this all deeply into account and look forward to ending up with maps that you and we can all be proud of.
Thank you, Commissioner Graves. Commissioner Walkinshaw.
Thank you so much, Chair Augustine. This was a great discussion. I appreciate everyone coming out on a Saturday morning, and in particular, the comments about the 8th and the 10th and the geographic distribution across the mountains. I think those are all really important things that we'll be continuing to discuss. And to the note that another fellow testifier made earlier on, we too are eager to get the census data later this month so that we can get to work and start to share drafts, which we'll be working toward in September to make public later in the month. So thank you all, and this is very important for democracy and for our elections in Washington State. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Walkinshaw. And at this time, I'm going to call the meeting to a close. First, I'd like to thank our Washington State Redistricting Commission staff, including the caucus staff. Thank you for all that you do to make these meetings possible, and all that you do to prepare us, the commissioners, so that we can do our work. I would also like to thank those that are providing interpretation services for us today. Those people providing American Sign Language interpretation and also Spanish language interpretation. Thank you for being here and helping us to fulfill our mandate. I would also like to thank the commissioners for all that you do, for leadership, for your willingness to come and be a part of this day after day after day. This is not your first weekend, I know. Thank you. And finally, I would like to thank members of the public for choosing to be here. for being part of this important process that has important consequences for us all over the next 10 years. And I'm sorry I've forgotten to acknowledge our court reporter who keeps an accurate record for us. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to close the meeting. Have a great